Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance, where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. So, one thing that I didn't expect going into the splits would be this. A week where on the surface, one of the biggest events of the entire year, especially for this format, is actually a thing that's happened. And Billboard actually gave their website a good redesign that I really hope translates over from the phone users to desktop users. The UI there right now, absolutely terrible. They really need to fix that and make it look appealing. But deeper down has revealed itself to be one of the quietest weeks that I've ever covered on this charts, with only one of the 5 charts on dance actually getting debuts this week that are unique. And my god, that feels unprecedented. At least in some other cases, some other smaller charts would actually get debuts. But here, yeah, I mean, Dance Pop had something, but it was already a song that I covered, so yeah. Dance Airplay really saved this week. But with all that, it's goddamn ironic that for the first time in a long and painfully dragged out run for a certain song, it's finally been replaced with a new number 1, No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe. It feels goddamn monumental. The first number 1 that we've had in a long time, and it's on a song that's only here because of mainly streaming and sales, with radio being slow to get on board, but there is a concentrated push to actually get it on that format, so we can expect this at number 1 for a good bit. And considering it's considerably better than the song that actually was at number 1, I'm not about to complain. This is long overdue. And I think what's more telling is just how easy it was for Disco Lines, because Miles on It by Marshmello and Kane Brown fell down to number 2, but what I think is more notable is that No Broke Boys was only 91 on the Hot 100. Miles on It clearly is at the point now where it's gonna absolutely get booed down by other songs that could actually make a run for the Hot 100, because seriously, being in the bottom 10 of the Hot 100 right now is nuts. I thought it would have been a little bit higher, but given that radio is really all that's embracing it at this point, it saw a big loss from number 1 and will probably not go back there. Thank God. Sadly, the rest of the top 10 didn't show any signs of moving at all. The Day's Notion remix by Crystal is stuck at number 3 because streaming is still on board with this, even though radio has completely given up any sort of push for it. Same deal with Victory Lap by Fred Again, Skepta and Pluck Boy and Max at number 4. Although this one didn't really get a radio push at all, it's actually gaining on streaming surprisingly enough, although the many versions with a lot of fantastic verses from rap artists that deserve a lot more mainstream attention, that definitely helps. I would not mind this getting higher. Then there's Blessings by Calvin Harris featuring Clementine Douglas at number 5, which again, streaming and sales are really all that's getting on board with this at the moment, but more importantly, it's actually getting a push to pop airplay. It's not a big one, but at the moment, I would absolutely not complain about it sticking around. Let's see if this can get higher again. I would not mind that. And man, when you compare it to what's beneath it in the top 10, aka 4 Brazilian funk songs back to back and a song that should have been gone this week, yeah, I would absolutely take this top 5 in spades, because seriously, the rest of this is rough. Passo Bem Solto by Atlas just could not rebound enough on streaming at number 6, although it is stalling out worldwide, so I expect this to be gone pretty well soon if there's any competition at the moment. And that's something I can't really say about Dear Delicia by Nakama and MC Staff at number 7, although considering that their other awful debut from last week is actually sticking around, yeah, we might not be getting rid of them anytime soon. That's a problem. But on the topic of bad luck, the last 3 songs really only jumped because the Chainsmokers fell out of the top 10 just barely this week. I mean, why else would Luna Bala by YB Was Good and Iris actually jump up to number 8 despite being nearly off Global 200 entirely, if not off outright? Or Montegem Tomada by Mozzie at number 9, which was off of Global 200 weeks ago and is really showing signs of having absolutely no staying power once it gets knocked out of the top 10. Or especially why fucking Slow Motion by Marshmello and the Jonas Brothers actually stuck around at number 10. This was the week it should have been booted into recurrency thanks to hitting 26 weeks, but given that the Chainsmokers could not hold up, it just barely survived, and my god, I really hope this goes away soon. It's a sign of a song that's not having any sort of actual organic staying power, and it's not good either. Let's move on. And here's the insane parts. Once you get outside the top 10, not only did we not really lose much of anything of note this week, with the only dropout being OMG by Tiesto and Sexy Red, which considerably underperformed even if it's going to make the year-end list. We also had no debuts at all this week, and no falls that are worth mentioning at all. The charts are really stable at the moment. But what did matter came in our positive movements, with 4 comebacks this week, and outside of Light Years by John Summer featuring Inez at 25, I expect the last 3 to actually surprisingly stick around, and they've done a lot better than I think anyone expected. I mean, I'm not really happy that Messy by Dawe is back at 20. Seriously, why the fuck is this still sticking around? But Tell You Straight by Jiggets continues to outperform all expectations at 19, and most importantly, Dawe by MK featuring Crystal returned at a new peak at 18. This has got serious momentum on streaming, and once radio actually gets on board with a song that's this easy to sell, I mean, it's seriously a #1 hit in the UK. This is not exactly difficult. But on that note, man, is it nice to see Make Me Feel by Oscar Medkay off the debut surging up to 13, where it looks like this is gaining a big bit of momentum on streaming, and considering that it's becoming a decently big hit in Europe right now, this might actually stick around and make the year-end list a bit later in the year than I would have hoped, but hey, I'm not going to complain, especially considering this brand of down-tempo chill house has not really been having the sort of representation it deserves. If we're not going to get Shallow or Petit Biscuit charting anymore, I'll absolutely take this. And on the topic of surprises, again, dance pop surprisingly had more actually happening this week, although it is really limited to just one debut that I did not expect would ever get here at all, and really, besides that, the chart was just dead at the moment. Huntrix continued to extend that lead with How It's Done at #1, closely followed by Takedown at #2, as Jump by Blackpink fell down to #3, but otherwise the only important thing to note here is our debut, which is a song I covered last week, and against all odds, As Alive As You Need Me To Be by 9 Inch Nails debuted at #10. I'm quite frankly stunned that sales and streaming got on board with this as much as it did, but considering that 9 Inch Nails haven't released a really notable single in the past 4 years, this feels long overdue, and it's really cool to see them still charts. They deserve a lot more respect than they get nowadays. And if you thought the dead charts ended there, well no, both dance streaming and dance sales were dead as shit as well. On dance streaming, Huntrix took the top 2 here as well with How It's Done at #1 and Takedown at #2, and unfortunately Illegal by Pink Panther seems to have completely stalled out, at least to hit the Hot 100. But otherwise, a return for A Sky Full of Stars by Coldplay at 13, not the last time we'll talk about that song here. They had a surprisingly good week, and that takes us to dance sales, where unsurprisingly Jump by Blackpink still held #1. K-pop fans, especially Blackpink fans, are very likely to boost a song like this to the top as long as they can, and this is a great song, so I'm not about to complain there. And outside of the expectedly huge jump for As Alive As You Need Me To Be by 9 Inch Nails to #3, where it's actually beating out a K-pop Demon Hunter song, this is doing a lot better than I expected. We had Coldplay surprisingly having a decent week here, with A Sky Full of Stars surging up to #6, and our only comeback being Something Just Like This with the Chainsmokers at 13. This seems to be a thing. I guess it's because of that viral meme from their concerts that's gotten a bit popular recently, but really, I'm just surprised that these are actually getting momentum. I can't complain though, they're both great songs. But thank God after all that quietness, Dance Mix Show Airplay came through to effectively save this week, with 6 debuts here, 4 of which are unique. Thank God. And that also factors into a #1 that I am so goddamn happy finally made it here, In My Arms by Elydium and Hayla. I mean, putting aside the fact that Hayla finally got a #1 in 2025 after Visions of You got completely robbed this year, it's also a sign that Elydium's comeback is actually showing some genuine feet and actually getting supported by the industry. And considering how well In My Arms is actually sticking around, and considering the quality of his new singles that he's just released, yeah, this guy might be sticking around again. That's absolutely welcome, especially with the quality being as good as it is. I'm really on board with this era, and I hope more that comes out of it. But don't worry for the few people who wanted Won't Be Possible by Tiesto, Odd Mob and Good Boys to hit #1, currently stranded at #2. It's on track to hit #1 next week as it's getting consistently on spins right now, and considering that it's also grown on me a considerable amount just like In My Arms, I'm not about to complain there. It's really cool to see Odd Mob get a #1 hit in 2025. But what's more telling is that Blessings by Calvin Harris featuring Clementine Douglas fell down to #3, but as I called exactly from the moment it debuted, this barely fell on spins at all. It's got great streaming still, it's got great staying power, and considering it's an easy sell in the season, it's gonna absolutely stick around and be a massive hit. But what I hope to God loses those spins faster comes in Mad by Martin Garrix and Lowe at #4. And yes, the title is apt. I'm not happy about this sticking around at all. I mean, seriously, with that new single that debuted this week and considerably high at that, this should be losing spins. I have no idea why it's sticking around. Hell, that also could apply to A Better World by David Guetta and Cedric Gavay at #5, but the thing is, that song is genuinely excellent. I have no complaints about it sticking around, and considering that it's getting a massive push on spins right now, expect us to make a run for the #1 #1 in the next couple of weeks, that's absolutely a good thing for me. Then there's Edge of the World by Medusa, Inalia, and Genesee featuring Nuala at #6, a song that didn't really have much in the way of staying power after peaking, but honestly I'm surprised it's still in the top 10. I thought it would have been out easily this week, but it probably will get knocked down next week thanks to songs like Dawe by MK featuring Crystal at #7, which is actually gaining momentum pretty steadily. I expect this to stick around for a bit. And then the new arrival to the top 10 for No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe at #8. As stated before, it's getting a push to pop airplay, so mixed show support is going to likely get on board with this in a big way, and considering that it's already doing well on Dance Airplay, this is going to stick around for a while. That's good. Certainly a lot more likely than Let's Ride Away by Avicii featuring El King actually hitting the top 10 at #9, and this one's been inconsistent at best on spins and even fell off its debut briefly, so I'd have no expectations this is going to stick around. Not exactly going to complain, it's not a very good song. And finally, Save My Love by Marshmello, Ellie Goulding, and Avion is at #10. It's been inconsistent on spins all week. Expect this to have a really underwhelming run for a Marshmello track, although it's at least doing well here, I can't complain that much. And speaking of which, well okay, half of our Falloffs at least fit that description of underperformance, and unfortunately some of them are really good songs. I mean, I'm not at all going to complain about the Final Countdown 2025 by David Guetta, Hyperton in Europe underperforming, but it also took our Running Back by Gorgon City featuring Carolyn Byrne and One More Thing by Artie and Audien featuring Sarah Davis. Unfortunately, both really good songs that just got shafted thanks to a lot of competition at the moment, and unfortunately they're both going to miss the year-end list. That's a shame. But for the songs that will make the year-end list, Wrap Yourself Around Me by DOD featuring North, Dreaming by Dom Dollar featuring Dawe, and most notably, Never Forget You by Afrojack leaving the charts entirely despite being in the top 20 last week. You can thank his high debut for booting this one out, and honestly, considering it's a much better song than what actually got kicked out, I'm not exactly going to complain either. And it's a real shame that I like the majority of the falls this week. They're all really damn good songs. I mean, the weakest is probably 2 Days by James Carter featuring Karma at 36, which is still a song that I find decent. But if it's going to take down Something New by GT Office, Matthew Topper, and PT at 14, All I Know by Rudimental and Khalid at 27, Don't Wake Me Up by James Hype at 31, Come With Me by Major League DJs and Georgia Smith at 38, and especially Nostalgia by Sammy Virgie and Izzy Cross underperforming at 39. Yeah, that's not remotely good. That last one's going to miss the year-end list quite comfortably, and that's a goddamn shame because it's a great track and really deserved better. And man, it looks rough when you take the jumps in comparison, because yes, while it's cool that No Broke Boys actually hit the top 10, and I'll absolutely take Dream a Little Dream by Armin van Buuren and Sam Gray finally getting somewhere at 34, although Billboard needs to actually realize that this is in the top 20 on media base at the moment. It shouldn't be this low, especially considering it's actually doing decently well there. But besides that, Ordinary by Alex Warren is at 28, Loosen Up by Hugo and Doughty featuring Preston Harris at 24, Can't Get Enough by Victoria Nadine and Kygo actually rebounding to 25, and Manchild by Sabrina Carpenter at 17. I mean, these range from decent to pretty damn bad, but my god, it's really concerning that these are gaining momentum and a lot of genuinely great songs are losing out. All I'm gonna say there. Thankfully though, on a much better note, 2 of the 6 debuts this week are songs that I've already covered, and both are absolutely welcome for me. I mean, as expected, Our Time by Afrojack, Martin Garrix, David Guetta, and Amel actually debuted up considerably at 18, which doesn't remotely surprise me. It's one of the highest debuts in the history of this chart, and with the names attached, I'm not remotely surprised. But what surprised me more, Revolving Door by Tate McRae debuted at 37, and this one should not be that surprising given that it's got a lot of mix show support and actually has some dance airplay support, which doesn't surprise me given the sound, but considering that it's not doing that great on pop airplay at the moment, this honestly feels a bit earlier than I expected. Although given that it's my favourite song that she's released to date, I'm not about to complain. It's great to see it here. But the rest of these debuts, yeah, they're weird, beginning with number 40, The Party by Alyssa Raghu.
I bring the party. Maybe it's 'cause I'm insane. I bring the party. The fun's not hard to come by. I bring the party. They ask me how, and I just say
Okay, so given that Cherry by Jules Liesel is actually getting a pretty damn good run at the moment, it wouldn't surprise me that more acts would get pushed in order to capitalize on the fact that a no-namer with barely any stream momentum is actually getting a song to do well. I mean, Dance Airplay isn't completely above doing shit like this. It's happened on other formats too. It's not exactly new, but in this case, it's even more blatant than Jules Liesel. Alyssa Raghu is an Indian/Mexican singer that dabbles in elements of pop, R&B, and soul in her fusions of dance music, despite not even cracking 150,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, with a song that came out in June and has under 250,000 streams. This has absolutely no momentum on streaming, and when you hear the song itself, okay, seriously, we're back to bad here because this really sucks. I mean, it's got a nice synth lead at first that would have sounded good in the early 2010s, and Alyssa Raghu doesn't sound terrible opening up the track. Her lower delivery is at least decent, but putting aside the wildly inconsistent vocal mixing, the moment that those drops come in with that cheap as hell percussion that sounds incredibly dated and has no low end groove against a mix that sounds incredibly out of touch with what's big at the moment, being the sort of thing that would have been big in the club boom era, and even then it would have been relegated to peaking in the mid-30s on the club charts. It sounds that cheap. And especially when you add on Alyssa Raghu's belting sounding laughably bad against this production with no significant change in the groove to really make it sound interesting or really all that satisfying. Yeah, this is really not good production at all. Kind of proving that just like a lot of other no-namers on this chart, this has absolutely no budget to make it sound good and would be the sort of thing that would get released and charts on the club charts and get benefited from much better producers actually getting their hands on it and remixing it in order to make the terrible original track sound actually promising. So yeah, this completely sucks. I really hope that it stalls out on radio fast. We already have Cherry doing this sort of style better. This has absolutely no reason being here. Skip this. Number 35, Start a Fire by Above and Beyond featuring Richard Bedford.
You and me to start a fire, coming up from the deep sea of dark desire.
Okay, wow, I really did not expect that I'd be covering Above and Beyond on this series, considering the last time that they charted on Dance Airplay was back in 2023, with their last charting song as a lead act being in 2019. I mean, it shouldn't surprise me that much, considering that Richard Bedford is an easy way to get them a big Dance Airplay hit, considering that he's been involved in a lot of their most iconic songs to date, and considering how much their label Anjuna has been absolutely killing it in terms of quality recently, with a lot of fantastic melodic house and deep house that really does show that that label is doing much better than most people would know. Yeah, I was expecting this to be really damn good, especially considering that I've liked a lot of Above and Beyond singles that have charted here, and yep, absolutely the case here too. This is genuinely great. I mean, I could nitpick and say that it's probably lacking an explosive climax to really justify its existence. It does feel more like an intro track for an album rather than something that should be released as a single. And if you wanted the side of Above and Beyond that went harder and had something that was more groove driven, this is a lot more focused on a relaxing progressive house sound with the smoother percussion and some genuinely gorgeous synths. I get how some people would not be on board with this, but in terms of nailing that sort of gorgeous atmospheric progressive house sound that Anjuna does so well, this is about as good as you can get. The mixing sounds rich and warm with some welcoming as hell atmosphere that really does complement Richard Bedford, who is absolutely one of the best singers that Above and Beyond consistently gets. I get why this guy consistently works with them because his voice is perfect for this kind of mix. And when you have that smooth flow across 3.5 minutes where it surprisingly doesn't feel underdeveloped, yeah, I'm totally on board with this being a thing. Between this and Watch Us Glow by Tritonal, this sort of atmospheric deep house is getting a lot more momentum in the Dance Airplay circuit again, and considering the quality of both songs, yeah, I wouldn't mind more of this happening, because this is legitimately great. Really cool to see these guys back. Let's hope this becomes a thing. Great song. Number 30, Mr. Cool by Kenya Grace.
Doesn't it get lonely always being someone new? Mr. Fine, so defined. Doesn't it get lonely different person every night?
Oh, thank God they're finally letting this one chart. I mean, seriously, Billboard, this was in the top 30 on Media Base, and it had decent audience numbers as well as spins. Why the hell was this denied of a proper run a couple of weeks ago? It would have really benefited, especially with the cutoff of the year end being only 11 weeks away. You could have easily made this a proper hit. But that's ironic to note, because even despite me complaining about this not debuting last week, I really wish I liked this a lot more than I do. I mean, I get the desire to experiment. Kenya Grace really should have done a lot more of that in her peak instead of leaning towards the same styles of drum and bass. It really did get old, especially on the aftertaste, and I get why her career has kind of stalled out as a result. I get why she would want to experiment now. But man, if she's going down this sort of tech house route, it is just not a good fit for her vocals. Which is a shame because the beat actually has some punch, especially on the second chorus. It does have some presence that I do like, but that bass mixing just sounds so overpowering on the entire mix against a trudging tempo that really does not complement her higher vocal tone. And when the entire mix just sounds so flat and lacking in atmosphere, it really does remind me why she stuck with drum and bass as much as she did. Considering some of the other genres she could pivot to, this is not exactly one that flatters her. And that's a shame too, because the lyrics here are really damn good. A takedown of a guy who is giving off serious fuckboy energy, where he proclaims his love for this girl on the night that they hook up, saying that they will love forever, only for him to discard her the next day and repeat the cycle again. It's a really sharp and well-written song that could have really benefited from a much darker instrumentation or some sort of melancholy in terms of how it sounds. Seriously, It's Not Fair now this same sort of vibe and did this way better. You could really feel the emotion in Kenya Grace's voice here. Just a shame that the instrumental is so average here, because seriously, this had the potential to be really good, but for now it's merely just decent at best. I really want to like this more. And finally, number 29, Over You by Nathan Dawe and Shayan.
See the heartbreak in your eyes. Now I'm building bridges over you. I'll get over you, get over you.
Well, about damn time that Nathan Dawe finally got a charting song here. And seriously, after Heart Still Beating, I expected he would have done a lot better than he did. But outside of Higher with Joel Corey just absolutely underperforming, none of his singles have charted here since. Which, considering that he's had some decently big hits in the UK since Heart Still Beating, that feels really weird to me. But hey, he finally charted again relatively high with this new single that's also doing decently in the UK as we're recording this. And yeah, I kind of get why, because this is a really nice piano house track. The sharper piano house production with those gorgeous melodies against the much more stabby percussion does sound really damn good, especially when you have those little synth flourishes after the drops that really transition well into the verses. The whole mix comes together really nicely. And Shayan has the sort of vocal chops that are so soulful and full of energy that honestly she could really match against some of the best in the scene like Clementine Douglas or Nula or Hayla. I was really impressed with the vocal tone here. She sounds great on this song. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, not really a ton to say outside that. It's not exactly groundbreaking nor revolutionary and not the most memorable track in the world, but considering that Nathan Dawe has made some real stinkers in the past, the fact that he's consistently delivering really good material now, including this, yeah, really good sign. This is really good. I like it. But it doesn't get the best of the week for me. Nope, that's going to Start a Fire by Above and Beyond featuring Richard Bedford. I don't think anyone should be surprised by that. With the worst also not being surprising being The Party by Alyssa Raghu. Sorry, I can at least appreciate someone getting their big breakthrough, but when the song sucks this much, I'm not exactly on board with it either. Next week, well, there might be a chance that that new Jamie XX track could actually chart given the weaker charts at the moment. Although we also have that new Martin Garrix and Alesso collab where I'll have some words for it. I'm not exactly looking forward to covering it. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.